Welcome to Awaking Moment podcast. I am Danny Palacio, and it is my joy and privilege to be your host today. In the course of this podcast, again, I want to remind people that the intention here is for you to find your own inner truth, to be sparked, to want to ponder a particular topic or question or perspective. And in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing personal information about my life and my journey. And I'm also going to ask that you all remember that I am not a counselor, but I have had a lot of personal experiences, and I've been in counseling for most of my life, adult life, I should say. And there are just some things that pop into my awareness, and I just start to ponder, I start to do research. And so today's topic, the wounds that change our behavior. This is a big topic because we don't like to talk about our wounds. We don't like to think about our wounds because when we have a wound, there is something infected. There is something that needs to happen to clear the infection. Self-care needs to happen. And that is so important when it's a physical wound, like you've cut yourself or you've scraped yourself, you've fallen down and you've scraped your face or your elbow or your knee. And if you don't take care of it, well, then it festers and it's painful and it swells and it's recognizable in our society that that is a wound that needs to be taken care of. There's a $1 billion industry about Band-Aids and alcohol and peroxide and every other Neosporin, every other antibiotic cream that you put on a wound, and then you cover it and then you take care of it. That all makes sense. And the wound I'm talking about today is a deeper wound, a wound that's unseen, a wound that you don't have to show other people. And it comes out, acts out every day in our choices and our behaviors, like how we respond to something or to someone. And so it's going to take a little bit of you to examine your own life and your own purpose. But I'm hoping that the information that I share today and the stories that I share to help illustrate what I'm talking about will resonate with you, will allow you to take a moment and ponder if something popped up for you. And I want you to honor whatever that does pop up, right? And again, if nothing pops up, then feel free to pass this podcast on to someone else. And thank you for listening. So for those of you that are watching the podcast, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I have a lot of notes and I want to make sure that I speak correctly and share the information so that it is factual. So, okay. So where do we start? I want to start with, we don't often call these things wounds. Our culture and our society has graciously given other words for it, right? Like, what are your triggers? What traumas do you have? What type of trauma response do you automatically go into when something is triggered? Also, as we go through the mental type of wounds and the psychological wounds, a lot of times you're going to be labeled a certain diagnosis. And these are all supposed to be helpful. And sometimes I think they are, but I also think sometimes they bypass what's true for you, what the actual wound is. I think for my own personal experience, I have found it more powerful to say, I have a wound. I am suffering. This is painful. And this is why. This is what happened, right? So we're going to talk about resources as well. And I'm going to have them listed in the summary notes so that you can take a look at them. So you don't have to, if you're walking or if you're driving a car, you don't have to write notes. So, and I also want to state that we all have wounds, whether we want to admit it or not, because it just happens. It's part of the journey of living a human life. A wound could be easily caused by a teacher in school not recognizing your uniqueness, not recognizing your genius, and making you feel like you're not smart enough or good enough. I think our grading system in the United States for education of 0 to 100%, and 100% is the absolute best, which actually now, even when I was in high school, they started the top GPA was 4.0. And then they started doing honors and Excel kind of additional. You could have a 4.2 or a 4.5. It just is always growing in the way in which people want to put us in categories and label us and define us based on a moment. And we are more than a moment. Moments are important, but we are more than the moment. So wounds can come just from that, from a simple, what everybody would say, a very normal experience in childhood. You go to school, you learn, you take tests, you get a grade, and you find out where you fall in the pack. And if it's not where everyone praises you, then that creates a wound around, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? It might create the thought, I'm stupid. I can't ever do this. I'm never going to be normal. We don't know what little kids and young teenagers interpret that to mean, right? So this is the more subtle version of a wound that I'm trying to get to today. You know, what I will say also is, as you're pondering your own life and you look back and you think about what you don't like or what you've judged as wrong or what you won't accept, maybe dig in there a little around, maybe you have a wound. I'm going to share a personal story around the wound. I need to be chosen. I need people to outwardly choose me, to absolutely let me know that they pick me because I'm me. And if they don't live up to that, if they can't show me, express that I'm important, that I've been chosen, it hurts. And I do all kinds of crazy behaviors. I get needy. I get clingy. I judge them for being emotionally immature or not good enough to love me because it's a wound and it has festered and it's infected. And so it hurts. And when somebody doesn't address that wound with kindness and compassion and around outwardly, verbally, physically, emotionally, spiritually choosing me, it's hard. And so then I become more critical and less trusting, and I don't choose others and I don't choose things because I'm not getting chosen. So why should I choose them? Why should I choose it, whatever that it is? And this has ruled my life for a long time. And it can come from all kinds of places, but my personal story is it comes from never feeling like I was actually making my parents happy. And so I became a really good people pleaser, and I became a really good anticipator of how to navigate certain experiences or emotions or moods that other people were in. I had a really quick sense of reading a room or a teacher or someone in authority and figuring out what they wanted and then giving it to them, because then they would choose me. They would see how valuable I am. They would know that I am the one that's going to make them happy. And these are really simple examples, but what I can tell you is I am feeling the deep emotion inside me. Like if I wasn't on camera, I think I'd burst out and cry for the rest of the day, because it's so sad to me that because of not receiving what you most need and not knowing how to ask for it, especially when you're a little person, right? You don't know that so much. I'm hoping that that's changing. I'm hoping that parents start to teach their kids to share what they're feeling and why they're feeling it as best as they possibly can. And then reaffirming to them that they were born whole, that they are 100% lovable, and that they are a cherished member of the family, you know? And that's just my perspective of the wound, choose me. And what I have learned and now experience and try to implement when this wound starts to pop back up, because if you know about a scab, right, it's so easy to get it scraped off and go, ow, and then the wound is open again. Or meet someone and for some reason they have a unique ability to pull that scab off and then the wound starts to bleed again and you're like, crap, I got to deal with this again. So here's what I know about the choose me wound. And I think we all have the choose me wound at some level. Like, I want to be chosen. I want someone externally to choose me for all the various things that I offer in the world, whether it's my intellect, whether it's my emotions, whether it's my kindness, whether it's my love, whether it's my body, whether it's an undescribable, unseen thing that they are just magnetized to. I want that to be chosen, because I used to look outside for it because I was like, well, if somebody doesn't recognize it, then it must not be real. It must not really happen. So it started to shift in my early to mid 30s. I started doing really intense counseling, and I joined a life coaching program that was focused on your healing so that you could show up in the highest and best way for another, to put your own story aside and show up to listen and to respond and to care and to guide another in their journey. And so it required a lot of self introspection of, why am I feeling this and where did this come from? And you have to be willing to explore your memories. And if you don't have memories, then you have to be willing to explore where it feels yucky and not good in your body, because your body is trying to show you by showing up like, oh, your kidneys are hurting. Oh, your liver is hurting. Oh, your heart is racing. Oh, you have a sore throat all the time. Even simple things, you know, like you wake up and you just don't feel right. And you instantly go, oh, it's because I didn't sleep well. So back to choose me wound. I will say that the things that have helped the most are understanding that I was born whole and complete. And when you're born whole and complete, there's nothing you have to prove to anyone. And there is an opportunity for you to be in awe of who you are and know that you are perfect. And I love Brene Brown's quote the best, perfectly imperfect, because the idea of perfect is ridiculous. No one is perfect all the time, every second of every day. No one is that. And so learning to have greater self-love and greater self-compassion, and recognizing that if I don't choose me, no one will choose me. And that's the truth. Because when I'm looking outside for someone to choose me, I'm giving them my power. I'm saying, I don't know who I am. I'm not worthy. So you tell me who I am. You tell me that I'm worthy. You tell me that I'm important. Because somewhere inside of myself, I don't believe I am. And I've had to do a lot of correction in my thinking, correction in my verbal expression of my desires. I don't call them needs so much anymore. You will hear me say that word, but really I've been trying to use desire, because desire comes from an inner knowing. Need can come from your mental mind. I need to ace this exam, but I desire to know the information and do well on the exam. That's a whole different experience. One is, I have to perform for your praise and your approval. The other is, I have a desire to share what I know, and this test will give me the opportunity to do that. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be the end all be all of who I am or whether or not I'm good enough. So just think about that for a moment. Like, where in your life can you shift the narrative, shift the perspective around something that is causing you to question and give your power away? We've talked about this in other Spark questions and episodes about giving your power away. You don't want to give your power away to anyone. You want to keep all that power for yourself because you know that you deserve it. So that's one example of how wounds shift in your behavior, right? Behaviors of being a good girl and being a people pleaser, so that someone chooses me, has caused me to overdo it all the time, overcommit. Again, try to read their needs. What are their favorite colors? What are their favorite foods? And that can be a very genuine, beautiful thing between, someone that I care about and myself. But if I do it out of need to be chosen versus desire to express my love to them, I just think about that. The need to be chosen versus the desire to express my love. And I listened to an interesting YouTube video that a friend sent me, and it was all about success and our culture around success, and that we have to network and that we have to do all these things to be successful. And ultimately, his TED Talk was all about how can you be of service to someone? And I think that this is a similar concept here. When you are looking at your wounds and you try to achieve what externally is out there as an indicator, you're more than likely trying to do it from a place of not good enough, not worthy, which is why that feeling it's a huge infection in our culture. Too many people have it and they don't need to. And I know some of you are going to say, well, how do I get rid of that? Do the work. There's a few things that I do want to mention. So body-mind techniques are really wonderful for that, because if you're not in your body and you don't know what your body is trying to communicate to you, you have to connect the brain to the body and ultimately the brain to the head, and allow that mental knowingness to surrender to your heart knowingness. There is a significant difference. So things like breathing exercises, affirmations, relaxation, EFT, the tapping technique, helps get your body and your mind more in alignment, and you start to feel your body more. This is a hard one because we are not encouraged to do this in our society. Although I do think it's slightly changing. I think more people are becoming aware of emotional intelligence and that we all have triggers. And so things like counseling, EMDR, which is a form of addressing memories and tapping them through the body and vibrating. And it just helps to take the charge out of a memory, which could be a wound, right? So that's a really good technique. Working with our memories is really important. So you have to be willing to resolve the unpleasant emotions. And it's really hard because unpleasant emotions are unpleasant and they don't feel good. And we want to run away from them versus, let me just let me just sit here in all my anger and frustration and agitation. Let me just sit here in all of my pain and misery and not good enough feelings. It's like, that's a hard one. But what I want to say and encourage you to is to know that when you give yourself time to sit in those unpleasant emotions, they dissipate, they lessen. They're not, maybe they're at the beginning, maybe they're a 10. And at the end of just sitting with them and saying, oh, I'm so angry. Oh, wow, I can really feel that anger. I'm hotter. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I want to punch something. I want to scream. And if it's safe to do, indulge in the experience, right? Like if you're by yourself and in a safe space, scream, right? And if you have to punch something, punch a pillow. So, and at the end of that experience of sitting with the unpleasant emotion doesn't feel so scary. And the more you do it, the more you'll start to understand that anger, frustration, agitation, not good enough, not worthy, are emotions and beliefs that will shift and change. We're talking about transformation. Like, I don't want you to just think you have to release everything and forget it all. No, it's about transformation. It's about understanding that it is a pendulum. Like, you're going to go into it and then you're going to come out of it. And you may swing back into it, but you have more skill and more knowledge and more understanding, more self-compassion, more self-love to get out of it in a way that is honoring and reinforcing that you are enough, that you choose you. That's the key on the choose me wound, is you choosing you. Every time you choose you versus something else or someone else, you are telling your body, you are telling your mind that you are important, that you choose you. And that helps you change your behaviors. You don't have to show up the way you used to or react the way you used to. You can choose something different because inside it's healthier. There's more spaciousness. There's more compassion. There's a reminder that, wait, I'm feeling something right now. What is it? And can I sit with it? Also, that helps rebuild trust, which is critical. So every time and it is a betrayal, every time you betray yourself, every time you give your power away, every time you choose someone else, every time you try to get them to choose you, you lose trust in your ability to love yourself, to know yourself, to thrive in your unique and beautiful self. And you need to rebuild that trust slowly. Little things, can rebuild the trust. Big things. You can have a total transformation. And in a session, I believe in energy work. I believe that we are energy that is in matter. And so we are a soul in human form. And that soul is eternal, and it's always in right alignment with the truth and the wisdom of your essence. So when your human mind and body and conditioning tell you that you're not something, and you have a wound around that, if you work with an energy healer, energy practitioner, energy light worker, there's so many names, but they can help you energetically move and clear blockages, stuckness, the heaviness in your energy field, and so that you can flow with more grace, more ease, where you can actually tap into your own energy system and honor it and see what comes out. And as all of that happens, having a really good counselor, having a great support system, ensuring that you have resources available to you to take the next step. This is a big one. So it takes time. It's not an instantaneous thing, and it takes patience. And the most important is self-love. And to get to self-love, there's a level of forgiveness that has to occur. So I want to talk about abuse because that is something that exists in our society. And there's multiple forms of abuse. There's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, um, and a combination of all of those and more. And it's more common than you think. So I'd like to share a personal story here as well. When I was little, I was 3 years old, I was sexually abused by a young teen. He was about 15, 16 years old, family friend. And I didn't really understand any of it at 3 years old. I just knew it didn't feel good and I didn't like it. And I was always, like unsure. But again, when you have a wound, it changes your behaviors. And I started to act out in certain ways that nowadays teachers, parents would be like, there's something going on here. She's had it change, right? But when I grew up in the 70s, it wasn't so normal. It wasn't so talked about, right? People didn't talk about it. It was something that happened in the past and it doesn't matter. And a lot of people can block it. A lot of people can forget about it. I know I did. Because it came rushing in when I was about 19 years old. And I was like, whoa, that can't be true. And I started to have memories and dreams about it. And that wound of abuse stunted me in so many ways, and it shifted my behaviors, and it created belief systems that were founded on I must have to suffer. I have to endure things that don't feel good. I've lost my voice. I lost my innocence. And here I am today, able to talk about it, not being triggered because the wound is healed. It doesn't have a scab. It has a scar. And I honor and I love that scar because as I processed it with beautiful counselors and amazing energy workers and doing my own work, my own self, integration, EMDR was a big thing for that, to help integrate and remember and, not have it be such a wound. Right. And so I this is hard to say because every time I've ever said it, people are like, "Oh, that can't be true." But I want you to know that it's absolutely true. It's an authentic feeling. I actually have gratitude for the experience now because I understand that part of my soul's journey in this life, unfortunately, had that experience in it, but it also brought me great understanding, compassion, a willingness to be of service to others. It is a part of me that I cherish because my little 3-4-year-old, she's the most adorable, sweetest little girl. And I am absolutely in love with her. And she has every right to every feeling she has ever had. And I've created a space for her within me to be able to play and to move forward from that experience that stunted, that was so jarring, so uh, um inappropriate, so I don't even know all the right words, but violating. Yes, that's the biggest word. So violating to my precious little 3 and 4-year-old. And yeah. And so when I think about that now, I love her and I have compassion for her, that little one that is me. And it allows me to open a space for other people that have been abused because I understand it. I could talk about a wound, about losing a limb, because that's a real physical wound. Or you have a big scar on your face because a dog attacked you, or you have a big scar on your arm, or something that's very out there. That absolutely is going to change your behavior. Like you're going to want to cover it up, or you're going to want to show it to everyone, or some form in between. But because I don't have that personal experience, I can't talk about it because although I want to say that I can emotionally and mentally start to understand a bit about that, I don't have that experience. So it's a little bit different. I don't have I hate that word. I was going to say deformity, but that's not true. You are a survivor. You and your wounds that are external, that are visible to others, are yours, and you get to choose how you want to work with them, use them, show them or not. But they're yours. And there's something really beautiful about that I hope, if anyone is listening that has lost a limb or has a really big scar from a fire or an accident, just know that you're beautiful. And although your body has changed, your soul is eternal, and you are just as amazing and incredible and lovable as you were the moment before it happened. So, okay. Whew, let's all just take a deep breath on that. Okay. There's so much to talk about, and this is a very intense conversation and a sharing. And so, I want to honor yourself. If you're starting to feel emotional or you're starting to feel like you're getting triggered by the sharings and the topics I'm talking about, please take a pause. Go out into nature, take a deep breath, give yourself a moment. And when you're ready, continue. Don't force yourself through this podcast. This is a topic that doesn't benefit from that. Okay. Where do we want to go next? I want to talk about the fact that wounds happen on all levels, and healing and transformation can happen on all levels. And what I mean by levels is we've got our physical, our emotional, our mental, and our spiritual aspects of us as a human being. And so, and wounds can happen at all levels. You can have an emotional wound. You can have a physical wound, right? We've talked about those, but you can also have a spiritual wound, right? I have lived in the spiritual world and the spiritual community for most of my life, and I have wounds from that. There are some people that work with energy that believe they have the right to check in on you, check in on your energy. Well, nobody has the right to do that. You have to grant permission. There's a woman on Instagram called Fairy Reiki, I think is her handle on Instagram. She's an amazing woman. I haven't met her, but I really love how in every episode that she's offering energy and a Reiki session, virtually, remotely, her first thing on her video is please consent. And that is so critically important. So I appreciate that. And I'll link her down at the summary, because really, truly, she's a gift to the world. And I feel what she's doing. Like it's really authentic and pure. So I will highly recommend her. I did a podcast on Reiki. That's another beautiful way to quiet the mind, to tune into yourself and receive beautiful energy. It's translated into universal life force energy. So imagine universal life, bright, vibrant, vitality, energy, and we all need that. I mean, when you get tired and you get overwhelmed, go have a Reiki session because you'll leave feeling more relaxed, more in your body, more aware, clearer thinking in your mind. All right. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about this today. I know that it's not an easy topic. And I want to also remind you that acceptance is key to this healing of a wound. If you don't accept that it happened, it can never be healed or transformed. If you're denying that it exists, that's only creating the energy of denial. It's like hand up. Don't talk to the hand, right? I have walls up. Don't touch me. Don't hurt me. Don't even think you can get close to me when it's in denial. But when you start to have acceptance, self-love, and forgiveness for yourself first. I didn't forgive my abuser for years. I forgave myself because my adult self, my older self, she was 3 when I was 3 when I was abused. So I had a lot of anger. Like, why didn't you say something? You had a good relationship with your mom. Why didn't you tell her? Why didn't you tell a teacher? Why didn't you? Making her wrong, 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 and wrong. And that is not forgiveness. That is not self-love. That is not acceptance. So in time, I forgave myself. I had such compassion for that little 3-year-old, like I talked about before. And I did eventually forgive my abuser because I thought over the years, I learned a lot about physical, sexual abuse. And I learned that it usually happens because somebody else is doing it to the abuser or has done it to the abuser. Because abuse repeats itself. And a lot of times, not for everyone, obviously. But it gave me compassion about maybe what he was going through, at 15 years old, a rush of hormones, and maybe he felt all kinds of things. And I had a moment of like, well, if any of that's true, my God, you poor thing, like you were a victim too. And there was just a moment of understanding and compassion where I was able to actually forgive him. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful because it lifted my burden and it freed my 3-year-old. It freed her. She no longer had to fear him. She no longer had to worry about it like she used to when she was 3. And it opened up a place for me as well to have greater trust, to open up to men in a way that I hadn't, right? And so, anyway, I do appreciate you listening to my experience. And I hope that it gives you a moment, a spark, a willingness to ponder your own wounds. And if you have the choose me wound, which again, I think most of us do, choose yourself. Choose yourself. Choose yourself. You're so amazing. You're so incredible. You are so important. You wouldn't be here if you weren't important. Your beautiful soul would not have incarnated right here, right now, if you were not important. And so leave this podcast knowing that you are important and choose yourself, right? Okay. I thank you. I send you many blessings, and please reach out if you need additional support. If something did come up, I'm always available and happy to take time to connect with you. So thank you so much.